This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special treat, a video podcast episode of the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about the importance of not only focusing on your kids and having date nights and having a loving relationship that your kids see. So, certainly, before I say that, please do subscribe. I have so many subscriber episodes, like 200 of them. And for $8.99 a month, you get access to 25% more Dr. Psych Mom. So that is great. All right, so many people come into therapy and they have no idea what a loving marriage is supposed to look like. Maybe they know from television, or they saw maybe an aunt or an uncle or friend's parents, but in their own home, there was nothing, It was kind of a wasteland, and the parents were either fighting or they were cold. And it's really, really hard to look like your parents, act like your parents on some level. Even if you repudiate them, you are your parents' kid, right? You're raised by your parents. So you're similar to your parents, And then to think that you, who's similar to your parents, should deserve and is able to get a partner who loves you and who you love and who you engage in loving interactions with, if you didn't see that in your parents. So your template is a non-loving marriage, right? And so if you, this is my sweater. So if you are thinking, oh, I shouldn't leave my kids, with a babysitter, or I shouldn't take time away from anything I could be doing for my children because I work so much during the week, so that I need to be with my children all the time. You have to think about cultivating a healthy relationship with your spouse as something that you're doing for your children. I even have a post like why having a healthy sex life is good for your kids. If you have that close and warm connection with your partner, their other parent, or if it's their step parent, either way, if they see that as an automatic default, a template in their home, something that they're able to emulate because it's so deeply ingrained in them from watching you for years, then they will be able to execute on that. It's just like we were talking in my Facebook secret group about pet names. And somebody said the exact truth, which is that if you heard your parents use a pet name, then you use a pet name. 100%. If your mother called your father babe, it's like almost 100% that you are going to have in your mind as a woman, when you get married, you're going to say babe. Think about it. Don't you reuse some of the pet names that your parents used for you? So in terms of endearment, so if a parent said sweetheart, you're more likely to say sweetheart. If they said hun, you're more likely to say hun. This stuff, it burrows into us, and it's your automatic learning. It's mirroring, it's modeling, whatever psych term you want to use. You emulate what you see. And once you're aware of this, so sometimes people become aware of this in bad ways, right? So the first time that their child has a romantic relationship, it goes poorly, right? It's tumultuous, and there's drama, and they're texting all the time, and it's just really bad. And so then you think to yourself, many people come in and say, oh my God, they're replicating what they saw between us. Or they say, my kid doesn't even have a relationship. They've been through all of high school. I know they've had crushes, but they've never gone to prom with anyone or had a little relationship. And you know what? I fear that that's my fault because they didn't see a healthy relationship with us growing up. And so you can get out ahead of this problem, right? You could get into couples counseling. You could learn different ways of engaging. You know, if it is not your automatic default to be physically affectionate, you can power through that awkwardness because you're thinking that you're teaching your child something. That will become something that's normal for them. This is like with any sort of cycle that you try to break, right? So a lot of women in particular try to help their child develop positive body images by not criticizing their own body in front of their child in the way that their parent criticized their body in front of them. So specifically, a lot of women, they grow up with your mother always being on a diet, looking at herself, saying, I'm so fat, right? And so then you resolve that you're not going to do that with your child. You know, you resolve that you are going to say positive things about yourself. If you can't bring yourself to do that, then you say nothing. But at least you don't say, oh my God, look at me. You know, I look so bad. And so then your child does develop a more positive body image because, of course, your children look like you. So if you shit all over yourself, right, then what are they going to feel about their own body that looks similar to your body? Or even if their body doesn't look similar to your body, they will have internalized that that is what you do when you reach adulthood, is you criticize your body and you look down on it and you always try to change it. So many women make a lot of strides in this when they realize that they develop their own bad body image from the thing that they saw growing up, like with their parent. So the point is, you don't want to pass down these behaviors of coldness, awkwardness, not touching each other, not ever going out on date nights, not ever prioritizing the couple, because you know that your child is going to do the same thing, right? I mean, at least I'm telling you now. So now you know. If you've never thought about it, then now you know. If you're people who struggle with over focusing on the kids, obsessing on the kids, and never having couple time, when I asked how it was for them growing up, they didn't see their parents go out together. You know, they probably, when I asked, do you think that your parents had a sexless marriage like you? They say probably, you know. Some people say no about the sexless part, but it's interesting because sex used to be different. It used to be thought that you would definitely, you know, that like even if a woman didn't want to, didn't matter. There was no idea of marital rape, anything like that. So basically, a woman would have sex even if she was unhappy, much more in previous generations, even if she didn't want to, even if she felt coerced, and that was terrible. Good thing is different now, right? So that having sex, they may have seen or heard or picked up on. But if your parents were disconnected, it's much more likely that your marriage will be disconnected. If your parents were happy, you tend to know automatically how to do these happy, loving interactions. So if your dad used to make a big deal out of your mother's birthday, you will, without even thinking about it, make a big deal out of your wife's birthday. It is just going to go, it's below the level of consciousness, right? Now, of course, you can change, right? So there's some people who their dad didn't even recognize their mother's birthday and they saw their mother be upset. These are more highly sensitive men generally. And so they resolve to change that and to make sure that their wife has a different experience, you know? But that is with introspection. And therapy can help with introspection. If you recognize that your marriage now, if you really zoom out, it looks a lot like your parents' marriage, well, then think, what will your child's marriage look like? Will it also be cold or conflictual or disconnected? And that can be really a motivation. I have a whole podcast. Your children can be the motivation to do hard things. Obviously, it's really hard to change a whole dynamic, to go to couples counseling, whatever the case may be. But if you use your child as a motivator, then it could really be helpful. So, for example, I've shared that I grew up in a very anxious home, right? And so my parents didn't drive. And so it's very important for me to drive, you know, to learn how to drive and to definitely drive my children around. But at some point in my early 20s, I had a car accident. So then I was scared to drive on the highway. And that stayed for a little bit. And then as soon as I was, I think either it was engaged. Yeah, in my first marriage, as soon as I got engaged, I thought I'm going to have children, you know, because I always wanted children. And then when you get engaged, you think I'm going to get married, then I'm going to have children. And I thought I cannot have this phobia when I have children, you know, because it's so important to me to be able to drive them around with something that my parents couldn't do out of anxiety. And so I started doing basically exposure therapy of forcing myself to get on the highway, you know, and I was sweating. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. My heart was racing. But of course, as I've discussed so many times with exposure therapy, it works. If you push yourself to do something and to stay in the situation beyond the point that you would usually escape out of anxiety, then it works. And your body habituates. and you learn you could survive it, and the next time is easier and easier and easier. And that's the basis of exposure therapy, and exposure therapy is the basis of EMDR and all of this. And anxiety is very responsive to therapy if you do things like exposure therapy, right, that are really hard. And so if you're scared of engaging in a loving way because it feels so awkward and so weird, and you have so many empathic ruptures and blah, 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 and you never learned it from your own parents, and it can feel very terrifying to change the frame, but you could do a terrifying thing if you really internalize that it's best for your kids to do it. All right, I hope that you enjoyed this little video podcast. It is a change for me to do, but I know that a lot of people really do like the video format, and Spotify is encouraging us to do it because people like it so much. So tried it today. Hope you guys liked it. Please join the Facebook secret group where I get so many of these discussion topics. I'll link that in the podcast episode description. Please do subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, guys.